Hello and welcome to another edition of the Writer's Block from True Faith. My name is James and I'll be your host tonight for an end of season awards special. I'm joined tonight by Craig, Dan and a new addition to the group, Ben. How are we all doing, lads? You well?
Doing very well.
James, yourself?
Cracking, yeah, very well. Good to see you all, yeah. So, look, just to kick us off, I would like to mention, if you want to write for the website, if you fancy being on the Writer's Block with us, we're always looking for new recruits, always looking for new people to get involved with the show. So get in touch with us on Twitter at TFNUFC. Right, let's get straight into it then, lads. Firstly, I'd just like to ask you all what your brief thoughts were on the season as a whole, and were you happy with how it concluded? I'll start with you, Ben.
Well, I think the position we're finished, I think it glossed over a lot of sort of flaws throughout the season. You know, it's done us a lot of favours. I think it looks a lot better than how most of the season went. I'm sure you all know the horrible run we went on through January, February, March sort of time. It's not been a good season, and I don't think we should be aiming for, kind of bottom half of the table. We should be looking up with the squad we've got. So I would say disappointed is probably my word to sum it up. Although we have done well in patches, I think disappointed is the right word.
Craig, what about you?
Yeah, very similar. I mean, Steve Bruce would probably say the ends justify the means, to be honest. And, we'll come on to the accumulation of points later on for one of the awards. But obviously, he's got to where he wanted to get to. He's able to brandish a higher league position and a 1 point better off points total. So, that progress that he was talking about for most of the season eventually arrived on the last day of the season. For me, thoroughly unenjoyable in the most part, with some notable high points, which again we'll get on to. But it certainly won't be one of my favourite seasons. I remember fans not being in the grounds was obviously really bad as well. I mean, to be honest, I'm a massive football fan in general, obviously massive Newcastle fan, but I'll watch most games. But I have to say, just it's a bit soulless without fans, so really good to see them back.
Dan, what about you?
Just massively disappointing. After the money we spent in the transfer window, we actually made some good signings, I thought, despite the managerial issues that we all know about. And we get into this run, as Ben mentioned, and it's just utterly depressing. Obviously, Craig mentions fans not being in. So overall and on the whole, it's been utterly depressing, with a little bright spark towards the end, which Steve Bruce will note as progress, because we've ended up finishing a place higher than we did last season with a point or two more. So on that regard, you could say it's okay, but for where we should be with the team we have, I think it's been terrible.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of those points. For me, it's just dragged on and on and on this season. It just felt like it was never going to end at points. I mean, that horrible run we went on around kind of December, January was just it was torturous at times, wasn't it? And look, to be fair, we did end the season on a high with some decent performances thrown at the end. But I think you got to say, that 12th position papered over the cracks, didn't it? But look, we'll come on to talk about more of that as we progress. But yeah, so look, right onto the awards, which is what we're all here for. We've got 7 in total for you tonight, which were very kindly put together by Craig. So if you disagree with any of them, or if you want to have your say, please leave us a comment below and let us know what you think. So firstly, we'll start with Player of the Season. We've got 3 nominations for this one. So I'm going to start with you with this one, Craig, and I'm going to give you Callum Wilson.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think I probably got the easiest job out of a lot of us, really, to argue that case. I think he was the standout signing of last season. We all know we needed a proper striker. We all, Joe Linton has had, the struggles of being well reported. I think he came in, and to be honest, he actually brought more than I thought. He even took, I had high expectations, but I just thought some of his performances, he led the line, he showed pace, strength, just that, a bit of nastiness as well, which was really nice to see. I think if you compare Joe Linton, who is built like the proverbial brick shit house, but he's actually like a pussycat. He's soft as hell. He doesn't know how to use his frame, whereas Wilson just gives, centre half's absolute nightmares, and it was a joy to watch him at times. And just some of it, even his after match interviews, where you can tell he just absolutely loves scoring goals. So that was really, really good to see. His absence, and he only played 26 games this season, which Steve Bruce would make you think he only played about 10 or something, but he did play in 2/3 of the game, scoring 12 goals. Without him, we look absolutely toothless. We really do. We look bereft of ideas. No goal threat, I suppose, until Willett came in. But yeah, for me, he's been one of the real high points of the season. Love to watch him. Can't wait to get into probably an away ground to cheer him on and hopefully bang some goals in. The only thing I would say about him just last year, I just love him to stay fit for an entire campaign. We know he's had that struggle when he was at Bournemouth as well. I really think he would be a 20-goal striker for us if he played the whole season.
Dan, Alan Saint-Maximin.
Well, where do you start? He's the mercurial Frenchman. I mean, we've had a bit of a history of mercurial Frenchmen, haven't we? With David Ginola, Hassan Ben Arfa, Laurent Robert, just to name the others. And certainly, Alain Saint-Maximin fits into that category. Like Wilson, he hasn't played a full season, and he's had his time out with injury and with COVID. But just like Wilson, when he's come in, he's had that impact. Yes, he hasn't scored as many as Wilson. He's not a striker, but 3 goals and 4 assists in I think about 26 games roughly. Especially in that time when we were needing points as well. Towards the end of the season, that Burnley game away stands out for me. He comes on and he absolutely changes the game. We were 1-0 down to a poor Burnley side when we were needing points and really struggling, Fulham on our tails. He comes on, he gets an assist for a Murphy goal, and then he single-handedly wins the game for us. And it was just fantastic. And obviously, we can all see just how good he is on the ball, how he can just float and dance past men quite easily. And just that spark, that creative spark that no one really else on the side gives us, he gives us, which it can't be understated how important that is, because just like when Wilson's been out, when Saint-Maximin's been out, we just look a completely different side. We don't look the same. We don't create as many chances, and I don't think you can understate how important them two are. So obviously Craig's gone with Wilson on this occasion. I've gone with Saint-Maximin. So I think he's absolutely fantastic. I think it's imperative that we hold on to him during the summer.
Ben, Jeff Hendrick.
Whoa,
No, I'm joking. No. Joe Willock.
Yeah, that's a bit better. It does seem a little bit strange to be given, or nominating a player who's only been here for half season for the player of the season, but he's been fantastic since he's came in the side. I think he scored 8 goals and he's 14 Premier League appearances this season, which for a midfielder in half a season is a fantastic return. He scored all types of goals, headers, came in at the right times at the box, and he scored goals at crucial times as well. Look at the West Ham game, that fantastic header from the Ritchie cross, got with the win. The Tottenham game, obviously he came on from the bench as well to equalise the game. So he scored goals at crucial times, and I think that's one of the most important things that he's offered us this season. And as I say, he's changed games. He's arrived in the box at the right time to score these goals, and his all-round play has just been pretty impressive for a young midfielder who's come into the Newcastle side who weren't playing very well at the time. He's changed the team. His form, I would say, has coincided with Newcastle's upturn in form, especially towards the, throughout sort of April period when he was scoring a lot of goals. And I think he's proved a class act, both on the pitch and off the pitch. He's been quite involved with the fans. I've seen a lot on social media of him wishing the fans, all the best and thanking them for the support and stuff. It's a shame to see him go potentially this summer. I don't think we're going to hold on to him. It looks like Arsenal seem quite happy to take him back. But it would be fantastic if we could get him in. I think an overall a fantastic midfielder and a fantastic addition, which we're desperately needed.
Yeah, all very good points, guys. I can't disagree with any of them. But look, I'll have the deciding vote on this one, and I think you'll all know who I'm going to go with. It's the person
you're absolutely obsessed with, James.
That's the one. Yeah, look, for me, simple. Callum Wilson, every day of the week. 12 goals, 5 assists. Those numbers speak for themselves. Single-handedly won his games at times. Said it many times already. I think he's the best striker we've had since Shearer retired. Did my end of season player ratings, Piece for True Faith recently. He was the only player I gave a 10 to. Without him, I'm certain we would have been relegated, and for that reason, there's no doubt in my mind that Callum Wilson's my player of the season. So he wins that one. Right, moving on to Unsung Hero. I'll start with you on this one, Ben, and I'm going to give you Jacob Murphy.
Jacob Murphy, perfect, because this was the one I was hoping you'd give us. To be honest, Murphy, he's been a bit of an interesting one in Newcastle. When he first came in, he did play quite a few games, but he's not really made it into the team. He's not broke through in the team, and sometimes, I would say unfairly, he does have something, or he has shown something in the past, but this season's really when he sort of found his feet in Newcastle and really progressed in the team. He scored 2 goals and 3 assists in this campaign, and he'd only scored 1 in the Premier League before this season, which does show a good return, and a very good return for a right wing back as well, I would argue. He showed that versatility, obviously being asked to play in right back. He stepped up, right wing back, he stepped up to the plate, and maybe he's found his position. Maybe his right winger wasn't the position for him. Maybe just a role slightly further back was what he was looking for and what he's obviously found. Going forward as well, he's been fantastic. Some of the balls he's put in the box, Dwight Gale's goal against West Brom, I think that's probably one of the most notable ones, and good finishes against Burnley, notably as well. And he has helped to solve the right back issue. Obviously, Kraft and Manquillo, for me, weren't up to the plate this season. They've been far too sloppy. So I think Murphy, he's managed to fill that gap at right back. He's done a fantastic job going forward and back, and that's why I think he's a very good nomination for this award.
Craig Martin Dubravka.
Me and you are Team Darlow at a time. I don't know whether I'm throwing me and you under the bus there, but we are giving quite a strong case for the previous writer's block for Carl Darlow. But yeah, happy to go into bat for Dubravka. I think since we said that, arguably his form has definitely picked up. I think when he first came back in the team, I wasn't too sure. He made a couple of early errors or goals I thought he should have saved, but down the stretch he really did come back to what we know he can be, which is that sort of dominant presence between the sticks, the sort of commanding voice behind the defence, which gives the sort of the centre half such confidence when he's coming for crosses, and he's looked a lot surer with his sort of his save ratio as well. So yeah, I think it does leave us in a very interesting position going into summer. I think he has now solidified his position again back at number 1. So where does that leave Carl Darlow? As I've mentioned, obviously we've got Woodman coming back from Swansea as well. But yeah, he was certainly a big part of that run towards the end of the season. He was back to his best, which is great to see. And I think, when the sort of the history of Newcastle United transfers is written or is sort of revised, his transfer around, I think, 4 to 5 million was an absolute snip. And, will go down as one of the best bits of business. So, yeah, really strong end to the season from Dubravka. Similar to Willock, really, only probably played half a season. So, but I think he did have a really strong body of work in that last 10 or so games.
Yeah, great points. I gave you Dubravka because I was interested to hear what you had to say to him because, we have had those discussions about him before on the show. And I was slightly critical of him, I will be honest, when he came back into the team. I did think he had a couple of poor games against Wolves and Spurs from what I remember. But look, for me, the game against Liverpool and the game against Leicester, he was absolutely outstanding. Comfortably man of the match against Liverpool, and those saves he made in stoppage time, the last 10 minutes of that Leicester game were outstanding. So look, for me, the number 1, Dubravka has just nailed down that place now. But I will like to mention another player, which I'll talk about. Then I'll give Dan the deciding vote after that. But the player I'd like to mention is Matt Ritchie. For the unsung hero, I think he's been tremendous this season. And look, it's no coincidence that since he was brought back into the team for the last 9 games, performance has vastly improved. He just demands everything from his teammates. And at a time where we were crying out for a leader on the pitch, he stepped up to the plate and came up with a few really important assists in those games with some wicked deliveries into the box and put in a shift offensively and at times and carried the team. He was outstanding for me. And look, there have been a few question marks about him over the last couple of seasons, but I think you've got to say, as I say, those last 9-10 games, he was absolutely outstanding. And I genuinely don't think we would have finished high at the table if it hadn't been for him. So, Dan, I'd like to give you the deciding vote there on those three, and give me a case as to who you're picking for the winner for that one.
Three worthy winners, certainly. I understand all three of the points you've all made there. I think any of them could win this award. But I'm going to go with Jacob Murphy on this one, because I think, this is a player who, as Ben mentioned, obviously signed Newcastle a few years ago now, never really got his chance. And then has come in this season and has really solidified his position at right wing back. He's scored goals, he's made assists. And not only that, he can defend actually all right as well, and he's done really well in defence. And not only that, he can beat a man as well. Not quite as well as Alan St-Maximin, but obviously no one's quite that good on the ball. But he certainly can beat his man. He can drop his shoulder, turn inside, and get past him. And I think, as you mentioned, Kraft, you mentioned Manquillo, they just weren't up to it this season. And I think Jacob Murphy's come in, he's made that position his own, and he's really helped us, especially in the last few games as well. And we've needed someone to be that creative spark alongside St-Maximin. He can't do it all by himself. So I think Jacob Murphy is our unsung hero of the season.
Great choice. Right, so moving on to award number 3, which is the best game. And Dan, I'd like to start with you on this one. And you've got West Ham away, which was the first game of the season back in September of last year.
I remember it well. It was obviously starting a brand new season, still without supporters. All these new signings coming into the side. We thought, well, how are they going to do? Obviously, Steve Bruce is still as manager, not what we wanted, but it was really good. And I just didn't expect it to be that good at the first game of the season. Obviously, Callum Wilson scoring his debut, which was fantastic, and then Jeff Hendrick scored a bit of a worldie towards the end. Who saw that coming? But honestly, on that occasion, Jeff Hendrick actually played really well, and we were all ranting and raving about him, thinking he's going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. Obviously, since then, things haven't gone quite as well. But regardless, I think from the get-go in that game, we started the game really well, and we asked West Ham a lot of questions, and we could have gone ahead in the first half. I think John Shelby had a good chance, and I think Callum Wilson bent one and didn't just missed. And obviously, this is a West Ham side who have gone on to do really well this season as well. And so for us to go there and play them off the park on the first game of the season and get 3 points really quite soon, which we haven't done in a lot of recent seasons. We haven't always got off to a winning start. We've often taken a good few weeks to actually get 3 points on the board. And I remember watching that game full of optimism, thinking, this season could actually be quite good and we could comfortably finish, maybe mid-table top 10 even. Of course, the next game against Brighton, we ended up losing 3-0, but what can you do? But yeah, it was a fantastic start of the season, and the new signings proved their worth in that game, obviously Callum Wilson especially. And yeah, it was just a really good way to start the season, especially away from home at a tough place to go.
Absolutely, yeah. West Ham's always a difficult ground to go to, especially with the season they've had. If you look back on this season, that result, I think, caught them off guard in that performance, certainly. Moving on, Ben, we'll go with you on this one. We're going to go with Everton away back in January of this year. Well,
that was a very good result. One that I was quite surprised at as well, to be honest. Going to Everton, it's not they were quite a good team this season. They trailed off towards the end, but certainly the start they made was very good. Of course, 2 Callum Wilson goals were there to seal the victory. He could have had a few more as well. There was a chance from the corner, notably, obviously the one where he went round Pickford at the post. So it could have been more than a bigger scoreline than what it actually was. We played excellently on the counter, especially for the second goal, where Lewis played the ball across to Wilson and obviously took that one away. And Wilson again did very well from the corner, which he scored. As I mentioned, Lewis played quite well on the counter. Wilson bagged his 100th goal of his career in that second goal. So of course that was a good moment for him, not just for the team. And I think the first win under Graham Jones's jurisdiction, if I'm not mistaken,
it was.
How much of a part to play in that he had, I'm not so sure, but I would quite like to think he had quite a significant part to play. And of course, it was nice to see a few goals against Jordan Pickford. Of course, we know he doesn't like us, and we don't really like him. So that was a nice bonus and a good way to end the poor run of results we were on before that game.
Yeah, a great point about Jamal Lewis there you made there. In my opinion, I think that was his best game of the season in a largely underwhelming campaign for the player. But yeah, so moving on, for me, I'll go with this one. I'll give Craig the deciding vote. The game I'm going to nominate was the Leicester away game. Saved the best to last, in my opinion. That was the 4-2 victory not so long ago. I think it was about a month ago, actually, with goals from Willock, Dummett, and another brace from Callum Wilson, who we've talked about a lot already tonight. Yeah, and the reason for me going with this one is we were just sensational that night. I mean, I think we did a show shortly after that again, and I mentioned that it was like watching The Entertainers. That game, it was just end-to-end stuff, and we just went for it. Shackles were off, it felt like, and we just caught Leicester off guard from the get-go. And I did the player ratings that night for True Faith, and gave just majority 9s and a couple of 10s, I think. And brilliant performance. And Wilson was outstanding, Willett was outstanding, and the last 10 minutes were very, very shaky, and we nearly blew it. But of course, for Dubravka's heroics really came up trumps at the end. And look, if that Perez effort had gone in and just before the 90th minute, that could have been a really different finish. But look, for me, it was a fantastic performance, and one of those games that I just wish I'd been there to experience at the King Power. So we'll give you, Craig, the final vote on that one. What do you reckon?
Yeah, all sort of worthy winners of that award. I think what's interesting for me is they're all away performances as well. Yeah. None at home now. You can argue, no fans anywhere. So as has home, sort of bias and sort of that home advantage being diluted with that, which may sort of explain why we're seem to have done so well away in these 3 games in particular. But I'm going to go with James on this one. I think Leicester away, we've got to bear in mind the opposition as well. Leicester were having an unbelievable season, and did, to be fair, even though they finished 5th in the end, they were 3rd going into that game, chasing Champions League football, obviously subsequent FA Cup winners, and we just blasted them off the park, which was just unbelievable. And as has been the sort of way this season, when we've least expected something, we've produced a performance out of the blue. And to be honest, all 3 of these games live up to that. West Ham, I don't think people really thought we had much chance going down there. Everton, we were on a terrible run during January, and that sort of stopped that rot, albeit we then went on another terrible run. And obviously going into Leicester after the disappointment of Arsenal, people were expecting us to get, I think, healthily beaten. But I'll go for Leicester away on that one. Brilliant performance on a Friday night.
Great choice, Craig. Great choice. Right, moving on to goal of the season, which I believe is award number 4. Dan, I'm going to start with you on this one, and I'm going to give you Dwight Gale's only goal this season, and it was a very important goal, and it was the winning goal in a 2-1 victory against West Brom at home back in December.
That goal showed what Dwight Gale, when firing, can actually do. Not that he's done much of that this season, but it was obviously a brilliant ball into the box to start with, at a time of the game when we were needing a goal, of course. West Brom had pegged us back, and we'd sort of got into that typical Newcastle mode of we've taken the lead, and then we'll just sit back and let the opposition come back into the game. And then as we got pegged back, quite rightly, and then obviously we needed a goal to go and win the game. And then I think it was Jacob Murphy with the ball in, and it was a brilliant ball into the box. Obviously we've praised Jacob Murphy a lot tonight, and rightly so. And that was another fantastic ball in. And Dwight Gale suddenly out of nowhere just gets his noggin on it. And it was an absolute bullet into the top corner, and no keeper in the world was saving that at all. It was a brilliant header. It was honestly Shearer-esque, that sort of a header. And it's just a shame that Dwight Gale hasn't done any more of that this season, because we all know that Dwight Gale is a poacher and a goal scorer when he wants to be. We saw that in the Championship, and we know that he can score goals. But at the Premier League, he hasn't done it often enough. But that goal shows that he still has it in him somewhere, sometimes. And as I say, it was an absolutely bullet header, a great goal, and a worthy match winner in a game when we really needed 3 points. I think that goal moved us up to somewhere in the top half of the table. I think at the time we were actually doing all right. That point, I think it was the 12th of December. And then, of course, after that, we didn't win again for about, maybe 10 weeks or something like that. And went on that horrible, horrible run, which, of course, we all know far too well how that was. But yeah, no, brilliant header, brilliant ball in, and a worthy match-winning goal.
Absolutely. Craig, on to you. We'll go with Wilson's second goal, another header away at Everton in a 2-0 victory back in January.
This is actually the counter-attack one I was going on for here, James. I think this...
sorry, yeah. No, the second goal. Right, yeah, that's right.
No, that's fine, mate. So, yeah, his... Put the cap on a brilliant team performance, but also a brilliant individual performance, no less than what he deserved on the day. As Ben said, he could have had an absolute bagful on that day. He was a menace all day. He gave the Everton defence no rest whatsoever, and this was just a brilliant counter-attack and goal, which we have shown in spells during the season that we can really be very effective. And comes from an Everton corner, actually, and the ball breaks out to the left. Jamal Lewis advances it forward, and you're absolutely spot on, James. His best game by a long way this season. Hopefully we see more of that next season. Wilson is breaking from his own half, showing real desire, even in the 90th minute, to get up there and to there's no thought of going to the corner or anything like that. Lewis spots him, plays a lovely ball across. Wilson controls it. And just a fantastic finish, really, and a mark of the type of player he is. Leaves everybody's favourite goalkeeper grasping at thin air, with his face down in the dirt, which is where he belongs. So absolutely sweet goal on many fronts, really. Obviously against the keeper, the fact it was a massive win, and just it was. For me, it was just typical of Wilson. I think he won us that game. It was a brilliant team performance, but he without his threat and his ability to finish. The header, you're absolutely right, was also a very good goal. But a really, really satisfying goal, just to also seal the 3 points as well, because we all know how we get a bit nervy when we're 1-0 up late on, and that just put the cap on a really great performance.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with any of that. I thought Wilson was absolutely outstanding that day. I mean, it was an almost perfect performance from him, wasn't it? And it really proved how important he was and is to this club. And look, 2 brilliant goals. And as you rightly say, I got slightly confused with the first one, but the first one equally as good as well. The header was a brilliant bit of technique to get the power on it from the ball when it was coming in behind him slightly. But no, that second goal, you rightly say it was a brilliant counter-attacking bit of skill and outstanding. Yeah, but I'll pick the third one, final one. I'll give Ben the deciding vote for this category. I've gone with Maximin's winning goal away at Burnley in a 2-1 win in April, and Dan touched on this one before, I think. But look, 1-0 down, 2-1 up. Alan Saint-Maximin wrapped it up, as Alex has said on the podcast after the game, which always stuck with me. But look, what a difference he made to us, didn't he, when he came on? And I think that performance was the catalyst to our run at the end of the season. But look, yeah, Bruce brought him on. I think it was the 57-minute mark with Wilson. I think the two of them came on together, and it just completely turned the game on its head. The Burnley defenders just didn't know how to live with him. I mean, Tarkowski was just, he was just running rings around himself. Never mind Maximin running rings around him. But it was just, an outstanding goal. The run, the finish. It was just typical of Maximin and everything you come to love and appreciate from the guy. But it was a phenomenal goal, and one that really sticks out for me this season. But Ben, do you want to go with the deciding vote on that one of those three?
Yep, I think for me there's one clear winner, and that's St. Maximin's goal against Burnley. As soon as he picked up the ball, the space was there for him to run into. He took his chance, put did a nice little drag back on the edge of the box, and a lovely composed finish into the bottom corner. And of course, that goal meant so much for us, both in the game and for the rest of the season. So I think for that reason, although the other two were both good strikes in their own right, that one is a clear winner for me.
Brilliant. Okay, moving on to award number 5. I think we're up to now. Well, this one, I know we're keeping it to 3 nominations, but this one could have easily had 10. So this is the worst game of the season, and where do you start with this? As I rightly say, we could easily have 10 here, but we'll keep it to the 3 because we don't have all night. But Craig, I'll start with you, and I'm going to give you Brentford away, a 1-0 defeat in the quarter-final of the League Cup back in December.
Let it out, Craig. Let it out. Let it all out.
I find coming on this show very cathartic, and this will be no different. So, yeah, I mean, for me, that was a massive, massive low point in the season, and that game should also come with an asterisk. That was Brentford Reserves. Let's get that straight. You know, I'm really happy they've come up. Actually, you know, they're clearly a very good side and very, very well coached by Thomas Frank. But let's be clear, their priority all season has been promotion. That was reflected in their team that night. We went into that game. It was a quarter-final of a League Cup against a team in the division below. We put our full-strength team out with an opportunity to go to a first semi-final in a lot of years. I can't remember the last one we were in, and we absolutely fluffed our lines. We were atrocious that night, and I think it was like a 6 o'clock kickoff on a Tuesday or Wednesday. I was tearing me hair out, so frustrating. You know, Bruce is one of the big things, and at that point in time, we were in pretty good form. As Dan said, we were riding relatively high in the table. We were on a good enough run of form. You know, a lot of expectation going into the game, and Bruce has always said, "I want to give the cups a good run. That's what the Newcastle fans want." And to get to that stage, we'd already scraped past low league opposition, and we absolutely just fell flat on our faces, and it was infuriating, that performance. There was no desire to win. I mean, we didn't even look like scoring. They wanted it more, and again, like I said, this is, you know, a B team for a championship side. And it was just really, really annoying to watch. It was a massive missed opportunity, because we would have went on to play, if you follow the draw through, a Tottenham team at that time under Mourinho who were far from convincing, and it would have been a brilliant opportunity to get to a cup final. So yeah, really, really poor performance that night, and that for me was the start of the poor run we went on. And obviously, you know, the subsequent games, like you say, James, we could have went with Leeds away. We got absolutely battered in that game, and again at St James's off them. But yeah, for me, that was the start of the sort of terrible run of form, and a really, really poor performance and a massive missed opportunity.
Dan, we'll come to you now. Sheffield United away, 1-0 defeat in January.
How long have I got? Honestly, this was, and I said it in my little sort of 60-second review at the time, I think it was quite comfortably one of the worst Newcastle performances in modern years and in recent times. It was absolutely abysmal. You have to think of the context. This was a Sheffield United team who hadn't won a game all season. Yes, we had a couple of players missing, but we still had a lot of our first strength 11. It wasn't as if we were too short on numbers. Sheffield United they were an awful side all season, and you know they've won maybe a couple of games all season. I don't know the exact number, and it shows why, because they've been absolutely terrible. And we went there, and we let them play, which is absolutely criminal. We sat off. There was no desire, there was no aggression, no determination at all. It was just an absolutely shocking display given the context. And rightly, we deserve to be beaten. I think there was one challenge that on Fabian Shaw that perhaps a Sheffield player should have been sent off, which, you know, it may have made some little impact. Who knows? And of course, was it Ryan Fraser, I think, who got sent off in the first half? That didn't help, of course. But even up to that point, we were still awful. And as I say, it was absolutely abysmal, as I say, given the context as well. Just like with the Brentford game when playing a second-string side. Sheffield United, let's be honest, were a championship side all season. And to go there and to play that way, when other teams had gone there and pretty much hammered them, was just shocking. And I was so annoyed watching that game, and so annoyed after that game. It was just awful. And I don't think I've been quite as angry and just quite as disgusted after finishing watching a Newcastle game as I was after that game. No one could hold their head up high after that and say, "Oh, I've done okay there." It was awful on every single measurable aspect of performance, just awful. And the fact that I'm stopping talking about it now is a good thing, because I've already had enough remembering it.
Ben, come on to you for the last one. Brighton away, catastrophic 3-0 loss back in March.
Yeah, I think all the emotions that Dan and Craig have summarised there, I think I felt these, but 10 times worse in this game. Of course, the games leading up to Brighton away were games we should have won, and we didn't. Games after Brighton away were a tough run of fixtures after the international break. So this one was imperative for me that we won at the time. We turned up. We looked like we didn't care. I thought all the players looked uninterested. Defensively, we were disgraceful. Welbeck's goal, and I think it was Trossard's goal for the first one, were literally carbon copies. They both picked it up on the left, put it on the right. The defenders didn't care, let them get the shot away, and in the back of the net it went. Brighton could have had a whole host more of goals. They had plenty chances. We had one chance, which was Fraser hitting the post. And that was it. That was the best moment of the game. Which for me is just not good enough. In the stage of the season we were in, the performance was absolutely unacceptable. And after the game, I genuinely felt we were doomed for relegation because Brighton were a team just by us. Obviously, with that result, they'd pulled away from us a little bit. And I felt hopeless after the game, absolutely devastated, and to the point where I just didn't really want to care about Newcastle at that point in the season. I didn't want to know about them. And yeah, the performance was just terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have the deciding vote on this one. And to be honest with you, it could easily be any of those three. I don't think there's a clear winner here because they were all absolutely abysmal. I would say the Sheffield United game, the 1-0 defeat, that was the game that caused me to come on to True Faith, and it was one of the reasons that Craig, you mentioned cathartic. I felt like I had to vent some form of anger, and with any writing or whatever it was, and that was the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me in terms of wanting to physically go onto a platform, as I say, like True Faith, and vent my frustrations. That was a horrific performance. The formation, 5 at the back. I remember we played Wilson up top by himself. It was just a shocking display. But actually, I'm not going to go with that one. I'm going to go with the Brighton 3-0 loss. For me, it's probably the worst Newcastle performance I think I've ever seen in my 25 years supporting the club. And it was the only performance, only match that I was obviously watching on TV at the time. I turned it off early, and I've never ever done that before the Newcastle game. And I turned it off with 10 minutes to go, and I walked away. It was embarrassing on all accounts. We were pathetic, spineless, and yeah, as Ben rightly said, I was convinced after that game we were going to get relegated. There was nothing that I saw that night, and performances before that where I thought we got a chance of staying up. But look, as we all know, things change. But I have to say, look, that Brighton game for me, it takes the cake with this one. Moving on, we've got a bit of a light-hearted way to finish the awards show. So we've got 2 more to finish off with, and we're going to start with the 6th one of the last 2, which is Bruce's quote of the season. Steve Bruce's quote of the season, and I'm going to come to you, Craig. I think we'll come to you first on this one. And I'm going to give you counting Spurs, or arguing with himself, counting Spurs as a win, 2 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, where do you even start with this? I mean, basically drew with Spurs. We won the following week, I think, did we get beaten? He basically counted Spurs as a win, and I was just like, I couldn't believe the interviewer didn't pull him up on it because it was just obviously factually untrue. It's not like a matter of opinion, like it's in the record books as a draw. And yeah, for me, it speaks to a wider issue with Steve Bruce around sort of his with speaking in the media. There's just a total lack of thought about it. And when you come from Rafa, who's very meticulous, some say he's political, and he sort of looks to manipulate the media and what have you. Maybe he does, but everything is thought through. What he says, nothing is loose or off the cuff, and is designed to have an impact. You come to Bruce and he can't even remember what his team's result was the previous week, and it's just typical of his sort of media outbursts and sort of how he comes across after the game. And yeah, there was also the fact it went sort of. Nobody picked up on it. It's just typical of the easy ride I think he's had in some elements of the media. And also, just speaks to his lack of attention to detail. He just seems to almost just like make it up as he goes along, which is obviously not what we want. But yeah, I mean, this was similar to the worst game of the season, James, this was a very, very healthy field to pick from. But that one certainly was borderline a parallel universe he was in. So that's my sort of put forward for that one.
Okay, Ben, we'll come to you with the next one, and I'll give you the exact quote. I've always said it's the accumulation of points, and 35, in my opinion, is not enough. So you won't get me jumping and hollering at the moment. Accumulation of points. Ben, do you want to go at that one?
Where do I start? It's another one, like Craig said. Steve Bruce's media etiquette, shall I say, isn't the best. I wouldn't say. I mean, the accumulation of points is a completely daft quote. I mean, it's something that you shouldn't even have to mention. And I think at that point of the season, you can sort of tell maybe a few screws were a little bit loose in Steve Bruce's head. If I'm not mistaken, a little later in that interview, he did go on to say, can we beat last year's points tally and last year's finishing position, which we have done. So, in this accumulation of points interview, we did get something right. But it's just ridiculous, like what he said. Just the fact that he's even got to resort to the sort of the accumulation of points for me shows that definitely he wasn't doing his job properly in the previous few games, weeks and months. And that for me is why probably this one is maybe the standout quote of the three we've got selected here.
Well, yeah, again, another good choice. And for me, I know we talked about expectations as one possible that we could go up, but I'm actually going to pick something slightly different. It's just one of probably the most bizarre comments I think I've ever heard any football manager, anyone in football say. And this was Steve Bruce said this: I got home Sunday and my good lady had cooked me Sunday lunch. By the time we'd sat down, Mitrovic scored for Fulham. By the time I'd had my apple pie and custard, they'd lost 3-1. I mean, honestly, I don't think like I've heard as much laughter in my household or even amongst the True Faith group chat as after this. And it was just one of these things where you had to like think, has he actually said this? I mean, a manager of our football club and he's coming up with just utter rubbish like this, and it's just like sometimes you think like, is he just playing a joke on the Newcastle fans? Like, is he saying these things just to kind of like wind us up and just take the piss a bit? And it's just stuff like that, which you would never hear someone like Rafa Benitez come out with, and it just makes you think like, what a total clown we've got managing this football club. And if you wouldn't laugh, you'd cry, really. And look, for me, it's a no-brainer. That would be my choice. But look, I don't have the vote on that one. Dan, I'm going to give you the deciding vote.
Well, James, you're in luck because that is also my choice for this as well. I just think just the whole way he worded it, my good lady, and then talking about apple crumble and custard and all that. I'm just like, I read that in quite disbelief, just as you did. I just thought to myself, you really have lost the plot, haven't you? Honestly, we've got to such a... he always bangs on, Steve Bruce, about how this job comes with a health warning or should come with a health warning. Maybe he's right. Maybe his mental health is just taking a turn for the worse, because that's borderline bonkers as far as I'm concerned. So for me, that has to be the Steve Bruce quote of the season for Writer's Block.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. I'm moving on. We're going to end the show tonight with the final award, and this is Friends of Steve Bruce. Got 3 figures who we're going to go through tonight, and I'll let Craig have the deciding vote on this one to finish off. I'll start with Ben on this one, and I'll give you Jermaine Jenas.
Well, for a former Newcastle United player, he's maybe he's not got the fans on side now. For some of the things he said, of course, what I'm going to allude to, saying that the fans have got a sort of a personal agenda against Steve Bruce. I think that was after the Man United game, and we hadn't been playing well in that sort of period of the season. And to suggest that the fans have got some sort of agenda against Steve Bruce, don't get us wrong, most of the fans this season have had something bad to say about Steve Bruce at some point. But I think it's the fact that he's accused us of of having this agenda against them. Like, we'll back the manager and we'll back the players if there's a cause to back. And I think with Steve Bruce at that point of the season, we somewhat felt it was a bit of a lost cause. Now, he said, I don't, in the interview, I've got the little quote up here. He said he saw improvements in the team in the past few games, and of course there had been a few. This is after the Man United game, the one I'm alluding to, and he'd said there'd been improvements, but at that season there wasn't really much to shout about still. And I just think Jermaine Genius, for me, he seems like a good friend of Steve Bruce. And I just think some of the things he said have been pretty disappointing this season, especially that one after the Man United game.
Dan, we'll come to you on. We'll give you Simon Jordan,
the man who nearly drove Crystal Palace under. Yeah, his antics on TalkSport have been unbelievable. Am I right in saying he called Newcastle supporters cowards? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. I think
so. Yeah.
Amongst other things.
Yes, well, yeah, quite. But even just to call Newcastle supporters cowards, that is damn right insulting. Who the hell does he think he is? Firstly, as a person, I don't think he has a leg to stand on. As I've mentioned, this is a man who failed at Crystal Palace and is now trying to lecture us on what we should and shouldn't be doing as Newcastle supporters. What right does he have to come on TalkSport and try and say these things about us and what we can and can't say about our club, which we know better than he does? Honestly, the man is delusional, and just like a lot of them are on TalkSport, to be honest, in my opinion, TalkSport is pretty much the show for friends of Steve Bruce, because that's why Steve Bruce goes on there himself. You've got the likes of Alan Brazil spouting rubbish on there as well, but Simon Jordan on TalkSport has been the worst offender. Just the support of Steve Bruce, despite the facts, despite everything we're saying. As I say, to call us cowards in spite of everything that we're saying about him, which Newcastle supporters, we don't say things that are unfounded when it's come to Steve Bruce. Or everything that we've said this season has been because of a reason we've been playing badly with it, or Steve Bruce has had a go at us supporters and said something that he really shouldn't be saying as a manager. And for Simon Jordan just to completely and blatantly ignore that and have a go at us personally and say that we're cowards for doing all this, it's beggars belief. It's beyond belief. And it just shows that the standard of punditry in some cases is really, really awful, and that they don't do their research on club supporters and what and the performances of clubs and actually what it's like to support certain clubs. And realistically, they should probably just take up some sort of other occupation, because they're just not very good, are they? As far as I'm concerned, Simon Jordan can just bugger off.
Yeah, look, I think you're right. Hitting the nail on the head. It's the narrow-minded pundit reviews, and it's just the lack of understanding with our club, really, I think, as a whole. But I think I'll go for my nomination as Rio Ferdinand. This is quite an easy one for me, to be honest. To come out and say that Newcastle fans should thank Mike Ashley for what he's done for the club. Right. I think he said at one point, look, the bloke's living on another planet. And look, if that wasn't bad enough, in the years since, when another pundits have at least read up in the club's situation, he's putting forward the idea that if fans hate Ashley so much, we should round up our money and take over the club. And it's just the temerity, the audacity to come up with a statement like that. And he just doesn't understand our club in the slightest, to be honest. And sometimes you feel he just uses our club for a cheap laugh. No integrity at all, no understanding, and just no compassion. But look, we all know he's pals with Mike Ashley, and I think his clothing range sells in Sports Direct, if I'm led to believe. But look, there's no excuse for behaving like a total idiot in my eyes. And yeah, for me, Rio Ferdinand would be my nomination for Friends of Steve Bruce. So Craig, I'll give you the deciding vote on that one. What do you reckon?
Yeah, again, all strong candidates, I would suggest. I'll just cover each one of them off in turn before picking a winner. Genius, played up here. I know there was the whole goldfish bowl comment, but he should have more understanding of what it's like to play here. And you know, we don't expect the world. We just want a team that tries. I know he played in under Robson, etc., but he should know better. Simon Jordan is just a clickbait merchant. Let's call it what it is. You know, he's deliberately provocative. Whether he believes what he says or not, I don't know. But half the time, I'm sure he doesn't. But at the end of the day, it keeps him in a job. But I'm actually going to go with Rio Ferdinand on this one. And the reason being is that he actually has a conflict of interest. Like, he should not be passing comments on a club that basically he's relying on the owner of that club for some element of his income, however small it is. And it's just his comments in particular, he doesn't say much about. So when he does, they're just absolutely outrageous and borderline like worrying that he's come out with him, like obviously like gathering our money to buy the club, which obviously the 1892 pledge is doing, but it's just ridiculous. And obviously he was very quiet on the Man U fans during the Glazer. He never said the same then, did he? So just he's particularly clueless. And for me, he will be the friend of Steve Bruce of the season.
Great choice. Right, well, I think that about does it for tonight's show, lads. I hope you've enjoyed out there, and it's been a great chat as always. And thanks to the three of you for all your contributions tonight. So, look, that just leaves me to say thank you very much for watching the show, and look forward to seeing you next time. See you later, lads.
Cheers, James.
Ta-ra.
Thank you.